Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to kick off our first plenary session this morning, going beyond traditional media, latest trends for today and tomorrow. We have two great speakers lined up for you, and I hope you jot down your questions and we can have some good discussion after they're done with their presentations. We're starting with Mr. Bruce Mello from Adobe. He's the Senior Sales Manager of Advanced TV at Adobe, and he has over 30 years of experience in the TV and digital industries. In 1997, he was one of the founders of the digital ad network 24/7 Media, and prior to that, he spent over a decade in both national and local TV sales at all the major networks: ABC, NBC, Univision, Cax Group, Cox Media. So he has also been a part of 3 companies who have gone public and one which was acquired by 24/7 Media. Our second speaker today is from the New Mexico Department of Transportation, Michael Sandoval. He's the Executive Manager of Motor Divisions. In his role, he oversees the Traffic Safety Division, and he started working in highway safety back in 1996 and has held positions over at the State Motor Vehicle Division, Planning Division, and Highway Safety Improvement Program, just to name a few. He's a graduate of the New Mexico State University with a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering. Let's give a warm welcome to our 2 speakers this morning.
We decided I was going to go first, Bruce and I. So first of all, thank NHTSA and GHSA for having me. Really appreciate being here today. I have to apologize for my attire. Normally when I do a presentation, I do wear a suit. I was going to try and sell it as, appealing to millennials because they don't believe anybody that's wearing a suit. But the truth is, I'm just old and I forget things, and my suit and tie is still hanging in my closet in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So you just get kind of casual mic today. Like she said, I've been with the New Mexico Department of Transportation for quite a while. I started my career in 1994, but I've been doing highway safety for close to 20 years. And I've seen a lot, of the highway trust fund bills, and all the way back to ICE-T, and all of the, Safety Lou, and MAP 21, and now we're in the FAST Act. But I will tell you, through all of these transitions, I've never seen what's happened over the last 3 years. And that is not only the advancement in technology, but the way people have accepted that technology and been able to use and implement that technology in their everyday life. I have a 9-year-old daughter who knows how to use all of that stuff. There was a Musical.ly video from our speaker yesterday. She is on Musical.ly and does that stuff. And I have an 82-year-old mother-in-law who also uses information and gets mad at me when I don't like her Facebook posts and other things like that. So there is a wide range of people that in our society now feel really comfortable using media. Tell you a little bit about New Mexico for those of you who have never been there. We're a very big state as far as landmass goes. This is important because we do a lot of driving. It's actually more important for people in New Mexico to own a vehicle than it is to own a house. Which is why you will find Mercedes and Range Rovers, Lexuses parked in front of apartment buildings, because people need to use their car to drive. Just myself, for example, takes me 25-minute round trip to drop my kids off at school. There's no bus service. It is a public school. It takes me 40 minutes every day to drop them to soccer practice and ride back round trip. So we are in our car quite a bit. We have a very dense, sparse population, 2 million people. And 1.2 of those people, more than half of our population, are licensed drivers. So most of our population drives, and we have very little public transportation. So being in our car is very important. We're all here for the same reason, and that's to reduce fatality. That should be our goal, no matter whether you're working for a government in this arena or you're a contractor for government. The bottom line is, how are we doing? I can show you here in New Mexico, we did this going back to 1980, where we had 417, and this is just alcohol involved fatalities. And for many years, going all the way up to 2003, we have been pretty much number 1 or 2 worst DWI fatality rate in the nation. As you can see, the reason I pointed out 2003 is because that's when I first became acting highway safety director, and I'll tell you a true story about when I was acting and how we got into kind of the media portion and kind of where our story begins. As you can see, we made a lot of progress till about 1998. In 1998, they hit a plateau. As a matter of fact, alcohol fatalities started going back up. I took over in 2003. We spent pretty much $0 in media and public awareness. We did a lot of enforcement stuff, tried to pass a lot of laws, but zero in public awareness. 2003, I took over, thought maybe we should start investing in public awareness. Well, we had a small group of communications people. As in that time, ignition interlock was something that was just coming about. And as you know, for those of you, ignition interlock, you blow into the interlock and it starts your vehicle. So we came up with this idea, and the reason I'm not showing this clip is because I think it's been destroyed since then for good reason that you'll find out here in a minute. We came up with an idea of this person going out, young man going out on a date. He pulls up to his person's house, she comes out, he blows into the interlock. The interlock starts a car, she gets a little annoyed and scared and goes back into her house. Basically, don't lose this opportunity for your date. Came up with this brilliant slogan that we put out there, and our slogan was, "Don't blow your date." So, needless to say, we got a few phone calls about that slogan. People thought we were kind of mixing this anti-drinking, abstinence message together. But two good things happened from this. First of all, I wasn't fired, so that's good. But the second thing is we decided we kind of probably need to hire some professional people. Public awareness campaign. So shortly after that, we did hire an ad agency and someone to place our media for us. And so that's kind of how my career as highway safety director started. I can tell you that we did reach a record low DWI in 2015 at 122. And as of a couple of weeks ago, we're right now sitting at 98. Nice. We're no longer in the top 10 DWI fatality rate. We're out of the top 10 and right around in the 20s. We're on pace to be right around 125 fatalities this year. We're hoping to beat the 2015 record, but we'll see how these last couple of months go. Things that I think are important in reducing crashes and why we're here, I think there's three main reasons. First of all, you need to have a strong law enforcement program. I think we all know that. This is something that research has proven to be effective. The problem with that is we don't have complete control over that in the Highway Safety Office. We probably have, and we do have more money than what law enforcement is willing to take at this point. They don't want to do traffic, they don't want to do DWI. There's a lot of opportunity for overtime for them. We still need to focus on that, but basically, we don't have full control over that. Second thing that you'll see pop up here in a minute is legislation. I can tell you I've been working as our legislative liaison since 1999 in our session, and everything depends on who your governor is, who your House is made up, who your Senate is made up. Pretty hard sometimes to pass legislation. It ebbs and flows. We in New Mexico have passed just about every piece of legislation you can think of. We have mandatory interlocks. We have tough laws on repeat offenders. We can do checkpoints. We can do all of these things. There's not a whole lot for us to do. We can tweak things here and there, but I don't see there's a lot out there that we can do that will have this sweeping effect. So legislation, and like I said, we don't have any control over that. The last thing that I'm here to talk to you about that we have complete control from a highway safety perspective is public awareness. And so I think that's where you should spend a lot of your time making it your own, doing things that can appeal to your state, specifically that's going to help change people's behavior. I know for years NHTSA and as well us has done these hard-hitting enforcement messages. You've always seen the NHTSA, you see 3 people getting arrested, a consequence message. Who are we talking to? We're talking to that person that's likely to drink and drive, the offender. Very direct population or target audience, usually 18 to 35-year-old males. Very important message, and something that we have taken seriously in New Mexico and that we do. I'm going to play this video. There's actually 9 of these 30-second spots. I picked 4, the beginning, the end, and 2 in between. But this is the kind of thing that people are used to seeing now. I don't know how many of you have seen 60 Days In, but this realistic, hard-hitting message, taking someone from the moment they're arrested or see the lights in the back of their rearview mirror, all the way till they're through their arraignment, and at the end. We have this in all of our driver ed programs, which is mandatory in New Mexico, among many other things. But this is more the reality of when you get arrested for drunk driving in Albuquerque.
Got pulled over last week for drinking and driving. Started driving down the road, not 3 minutes later, there's some lights flashing in my rearview mirror.
Good evening, sir. The reason why I stopped you is you're doing a lot of swerving in the roadway. Have you consumed any alcohol this evening?
Oh, yeah, a couple drinks.
When show up the vehicle?
He asked me to step out of the car, and then the reality really sunk in.
You'll see on there that it says to be continued. We release those in every couple weeks, all the way through first one through the 9th one that we did. Here's one more,
Got pulled
couple
over last
forward.
week for drinking and driving.
I need you to be further honest with me in how much you consumed tonight.
I had 4 drinks.
Go ahead and face towards my unit. You are under arrest for driving under the influence of intoxicating liquor.
Once you go to clicking around your wrist, everything sinks.
Take a seat.
I thought I was fine, but the reality was I was over the limit.
Tech 18 Albuquerque, be advised that we'll have 11015 for DWI.
We also tried to use our real law enforcement officers, or those are actually state police, and we used our real detention center where people go when they actually do get a detention.
So I was arrested for drunk driving. They told me 24. I don't know what to do. I don't know what my best bet is for not getting hurt.
And then we go through arraignment, everything, and finally he's released from the jail.
So I was arrested for drunk driving. Oh, I finally granted my release. To have a bus that can bring you back into town if you can't get a ride. I don't want to tell my girlfriend, but I got off the van and she's already there waiting for me. I tried telling her that everything's gonna be okay.
It's not fun.
I disappointed a lot of people, my job, family, girlfriend. You can't erase a DWI.
So obviously, he finally got out of jail, but also his troubles in a lot of ways just begun with his work and everything else. When you watch all these strung together, it really does tell a realistic story of what happens. And which is what, you heard a lot yesterday, is be real with people, don't lie to them, show them what really happens, and they'll get the message. One of the things we've also been doing is shifting more towards an emotional message. And the reason we're trying to move in that direction is because we don't only want to talk to the maybe offender, but who around the defender that has influence over them. I can tell you, for me, it's my wife and my kids who will influence a lot of the decisions that I make every day. For some people, it's their brother, sister, mother, father, etc. And so to reach those people, a lot of times you have to make them feel some type of emotion in order to make sure that or get them to want to be involved in stopping this problem. We did merge this with the law enforcement message as well, to make law enforcement look a little bit vulnerable and help understand what they have to go through when they deal with this issue.
When you wear this badge, you see things most people never see. The destruction, shattered lives. But that's not the hardest part. The look on the face of a wife, a mother, when I have to tell them their loved one is dead because of a drunk driving crash. That's still the toughest part of this job. I guess there's a reason why this badge sits right over my heart.
We actually did 3 of these with law enforcement. We did 3 with a surgeon who works in the emergency room. We did 3 with the physical therapist. So we created a whole campaign around this, starting to get people to be a little bit emotional about this issue and draw them in. Then we went strictly emotional. Not really enforcement related, but really trying to get people who may have not otherwise been engaged in this issue. And I think this video did a really good job of that.
Dad, he did a bad thing. He did a bad thing.
Tell me where you are and we can help you. We can get there very quickly.
He's been drinking. Now he's driving somewhere.
Where is he driving?
I think we're on our way home. Can you help me?
Oh my god, you're in the car?
I can tell you we got a lot of feedback on this, obviously. People thought maybe we went too far, but the thing is, this is based on a true story. It's actually happened. But this got a lot of people talking in New Mexico, a lot of people that we wouldn't normally be able to reach. Everything I've shown to you is very much traditional media. It got played on television, very strategically, on certain stations at certain times, radio, outdoor. And so we have been able and been very successful at reaching a lot of people in that way. We have also, and I'll talk about that now, is created, what it really did is create a campaign for us that we refer to as NDWI. Not only ending it for the offender, but how can we help NDWI as a community? And we've been able to do that in that shorthand text that people are so familiar with. We've been able to convert it into other issues like don't text, buckle up. And so everything that we do now is tagged in this way, and this is kind of how we produce things and get things out to the media. We did have, as a lot of highway safety offices are required to do a public awareness survey in our motor vehicle division office. This is the last results about recognizing and understanding what these campaigns mean. I can tell you that this is a almost exact reflection of how much money we put into each of these campaigns. We spend millions of dollars in DWI, probably less than $1 million in don't text and other things, and we get very little occupant protection money, and basically we only participate in click it or ticket throughout the year. So it's kind of good for us to know that people, the amount of money that we're investing is actually showing up in the results and what people are recognizing, and so it looks like we're getting the message out in the right way. You've heard a lot of statistics yesterday. You'll hear a lot throughout this conference about millennials and generation this and that. I won't spend a lot of time on that, but certainly we know that we have to reach a different population, and the way that they get a lot of things is obviously through their phone. I think we all do at this point. We have at least one phone, probably two phones, a lot of us, an iPad, other things, but there's a lot of millennials out there that don't trust traditional advertising, which I just showed, and so you have to get into that social media aspect, which I'll show some of the things that we've done now. From this, we've created a character called Dwight Goodman. I can tell you right now, when this first came up, I was not all that convinced that this was going to work. But what do I know? I'm a 47-year-old bald guy who can't remember to bring his tie and shirt from the next so I'm probably not the kind of person that would be attracted to this. But this has been one of our most recognizable and successful campaigns, and this incorporates another fact of emotion, and that's humor. I would say be very careful when you're being humorous. You have to be tasteful in those type of things, but it can be very effective, and I'll show you a couple of videos of this. Dwight Goodman we use in all different formats, don't text, buckle up, NDWI. He had his own website, he had Facebook, and I'll show you some of the on-the-ground things that he did. And I'm going to need you guys back there to play this video.
I guess you could call me the life of the party. But after I've been drinking, I really don't like driving. Lucky me, I met Dwight Goodman. I'm Dwight Goodman, personal assistant. At first I was like, give me back my cheesy roll before I pop you. Let's smoke you little clown. Yeah, they call me the Hurricane. Cause my fists, they go like hurricanes. Let's ride. Boom! Then I realized, Dwight's really a lifesaver. Ready, checkpoint?
Nothing to worry about, officer. So Dwight Goodman on designated driver's duty tonight. Boom!
Boom! Done.
I've been a designated driver and a personal assistant for 15 years.
I would describe Dwight Goodman as trustworthy, loyal, and awesome.
Wow, that badge is shiny.
I'll take Dwight Goodman over water because I know Dwight Goodman's gonna get me water. This guy got me. I'm all good, bro. Keep on cruising, man. Oh?
That was our DWI spot. If we play the next one, one of the buckle up spots.
that Dwight Goodman's personal assistant looks like our family's guardian angel.
Or not.
Hello there, Daddy. I'm Dwight Goodman here, just to make sure all those seatbelts are buckled up.
Dwight takes such good care of us. He keeps us buckled up and safe. He's like a part of the family.
No, he's not. No, he's not. No, he's not.
Boom!
I love you, Dwight Goodman.
Who wants hot dogs?
I do.
So he became quite the character. People thought he was a real person, and I mean he is, but they thought that was really his character. We have taken him around to different locations. This is downtown Albuquerque, just filming. I like to see that other people are doing this, and we're kind of on track. The gentleman had a similar video with his designated driver thing. But this is what people watch. This is what they find on YouTube and those type of things, and they watch and they laugh and they get engaged.
Right, Megan. Downtown Albuquerque. So this is where we're going to be back later tonight. We're going to get all these cabs lined up. We're going to get people to cab. Make sure you guys have a designated driver for the night. Safety first. All right, buddy. Nice work. Oh, this guy just touched his nose with his toe. I don't know why I'm doing this. We should let him go. He's clearly sober. I'm the Pied Piper of drugs. Have you been drinking?
No.
You can take my card then. Now remember, get a designated driver tonight or take a cab. It's her birthday in the birthday.
Dwight Goodman.
Yeah! Thank you. You're amazing. Happy birthday. Dwight Goodman here. On the streets of Albuquerque, we've been meeting people and having a great time. I can't wait to come back. Hold on a second. One more thing. Ma'am, have you been drinking?
Yes, I have.
I gotta get you in a cab then. Come with me. Oh, you're doing great. I'm great. In there, watch your hat. Sir, can you get her home safely? Thank you. All right. You're welcome. Dwight Goodman strikes again. Boom.
So what we really tried to do with Dwight is just reinforce the kind of behavior that we want people to engage in. You know, get a designated driver, take over, these type of things. He does have his own website, Facebook, Twitter. He does respond to those things. And all of this can be found on our ndwi.com website. Notice the tag for our website doesn't have .gov or anything like that. Something that people who maybe not believing stuff from government or want to go to a government site can go here and they can find different, all of the videos that we have, all of the Dwight stuff, everything that we've done up to this point, they can find out. There's also don'ttext.com, zeroproof.com, those type of things, and they're all linked together. So. Okay. We can also incorporate this into social media. We had a big problem with people being overserved in our state. A lot of fatalities due to drunk pedestrians after they walk out of the bar. This is a little app that's used for our servers. We work with our restaurant association, telling them how to say no, basically, to make sure they feel comfortable with turning people down. We have people that can serve that are 19 years old, so you don't even have to be 21 to serve alcohol.
Please, please, please.
Please, pretty, please.
Come on, help a guy out.
Bro, I'm telling you, just this once. It's cool. Trust me.
So they have a hard time saying no to people. We did what's called My Instead. This is underage drinking. We did a whole video contest. We gave away iPads to the people that submitted and ultimately won. No, you cannot buy iPads with federal funds, just so you know, we did not do that. There's ways to do that, though, that I can talk to you about, but I just want to make sure that's clear. It just kind of morphed into zero proof. Obviously 80 proof, 100 proof. If you're underage drinking, you should be at zero proof. We have a whole campaign about this. As a matter of fact, it's only 6:45, which I'd normally be waking up now in New Mexico, but today our governor is launching this Zero Proof campaign through a press event. And there's curriculum, teacher curriculum that's going to be put out to our Department of Education. It does have an app and all different types of things. A lot of you probably have seen these apps that distort your face and things. I'm not a fan of those because my daughter has the one that makes her face look really big. She took my picture once and started laughing, showed me and said, "Look at your face, Dad." And I looked and it hadn't done my face that way yet, but she thought it was pretty funny anyway. So, we also do have an NDWI app that I'll go through really quickly. It does show on here, it has Uber and Lyft and all of those type of things. It also does show injuries and fatality data. So that when you're at a bar or you're driving around, it kind of plots where the latest fatalities and injuries have actually happened on our app. We have this particular location app location service on the app, and it shows all the other people who are using NDWI. When you agree to download this, basically you agree to do something, whatever you can, to stop someone from drinking and driving, and it shows on there the other people around you that have also taken that pledge. I'm almost done here. A couple things that are new: virtual reality. We have already worked with our regional office to get a lot of what we want to do approved. There's a couple things that weren't approved that we're going to use some state money for. But this is basically the next generation of media that needs to be explored. As you can see there, people who experience virtual reality are more likely to retain that because they actually experience it. And so as soon as that's out, obviously that'll be available to everybody. The other thing that's not on here that's new that just came up a couple weeks ago is, I don't know if you know what geofencing is, but you can kind of drop a fence around a particular football game or a particular bar and insert messages for the people inside there that follows them for 15, 30, however long you want to pay for days. And so we're looking into doing some pretty unique geofencing stuff, just to also make sure we get our target population. The last thing I'll show you is this video. I think it's important, in summary, a couple things. First of all, follow the rules. We spend a lot of money on media, about $5 million a year. It's important that when you use any type of money, especially federal money, that you follow the rules, and we do. We have an ad agency, RK Venture, that we hired, and our media placement marketing solutions. They keep immaculate records. They've been audited by NHTSA several times. Spend some time with them to make sure they know how to keep the proper records that they're going to need to show that the funds were used properly. That's very, very important. Traditional media is still important, those stuff that I showed you before. I wouldn't just totally abandon that. TV, radio, billboard still is effective. Also get into these arenas. And talk to everyone that can make a difference. Don't just talk to that offender. They might not be willing to change or listen. You need to talk to the people around that offender that's going to help them change. Don't be afraid of controversy. A lot of these we get calls on. It's okay, as long as you don't get political. I don't recommend using any kind of getting close to religion. Obviously, don't be racist, sexist, those type of things. Stay completely away from that. There's plenty of ways you can go without having to go there. But the reality is, stuff like this happens. People die. There's blood. And these are horrific crashes, and so I think you need sometimes to express that to your audience. Do something that cuts through the clutter. We heard a little bit about that yesterday. There's a lot of stuff out there. Don't make it look like a government spot because it's not going to cut through the clutter. If you notice, a lot of these are just simply tagged NMDOT. You don't have to take credit for it as government. Just put it out there, let people find it and react to it. And I will show this last one. We got national attention for this. I won't say this is our best spot, but this is the one most recently that did get national attention. This is a little gory, but this also reinforces what we're trying to do, and that is do the right thing at the end of the day.
The place is rocking tonight. Hey, you sure you're okay to drive, man? Yeah. What's the worst that could happen? Hey, you sure you're okay to drive? No. We should just call a cab. Cool.
So I want to thank you guys very much for having me. Like I said, all this is on ndwi.com. Be happy to share anything. A lot of our stuff has been used by other states. We just simply retag it and give it to you so you don't have to recreate your will. A lot of it's pretty generic that applies to everyone regardless whether you live in New Mexico or somewhere else. We'll be happy to share that with you. So thank you very much.
that mic though. Good morning. Nice to be with you this morning, Michael. Thank you for a great presentation. Those are really powerful commercials. My name is Bruce Mello. I'm with the Adobe Ad Cloud in the TV division. And I'd like to make one thing clear up front. There's been a lot of talk about millennials, and I'm not a millennial, but I've seen a few. So I think that, you know, our topic this morning is really about getting beyond, excuse me, I'm a little cold, getting beyond traditional media. I'm going to be a little off topic because I'm actually going to talk about traditional media. I'm going to talk about a medium that goes back to the 50s, kind of like me. I'm going to talk about television. Actually, I'm also very high tech. So I'd like to talk about the paradigm shift that's occurring in television advertising. So I think that most of you in this room, and maybe we can have a show of hands, how many of you have actually bought or planned a TV campaign? Okay, like I thought most of you. How many of you have actually executed a programmatic or advanced TV campaign? A few. Good for you. Sue, you and I are ahead of the curve on this one, right? So I'd like to talk about that today. The next slide I'm going to share with you is affectionately known as the Bruce slide. I think that's because I'm the only person at the TV division of Adobe that's actually been around long enough to have seen most of this timeline. I started at ABC in the early 80s, back when there was only 3 networks, and I had the pleasure of selling Charlie's Angels, which was doing a 25 rating for adults and women 18 to 49 to Revlon. Things were really great. I think if you take a look at what's happening today, I think the top show for women 18 to 49 outside of sports is This Is Us and Empire, and they're doing a 4 rating. So things have really changed. The point of this is really that there's been more change in the last 3 or 4 years than there's been in the last 60 years. And it's really made our jobs much more complicated. And one of the things Michael was talking about was reach and getting your ads, your really emotional, powerful ads in front of as many people as possible. And I think that the landscape has really made that much more challenging for everybody. So, in spite of the fact that we've heard a lot about TV dying and you know, it's going away, and this is the first year, I think, that actually digital advertising spend has surpassed television advertising spend. Digital, I think, is forecast to be $72 billion this year. Television's around 70. So things are really changing, but at the same time, from a content perspective, this is really the golden years of television. There were 455 original TV scripts in 2016, and that's an increase of 150% in the last 10 years, which is pretty dramatic. But I think what's really making a difference is all the different ways that we can access that content. I would guess that most of the people in this room are familiar with Netflix, Hulu, Amazon. These things have really changed the marketplace, and it's created a tremendous amount of fragmentation in our market. So, as I said, it's really made the job of buying television, finding your audience effectively, much more challenging and much more difficult. So what we're here to do is really talk about how we can do that better. One of the biggest problems is that GRPs are being misrepresented. They're really being driven by frequency instead of reach. So we all know that GRPs are reach times frequency. And there was a really interesting research study done last year by a researcher who's been in the television industry for 40 years, Bill Harvey. And he came out with a study that showed that, he said, up until about 5 years ago, I would buy 200 GRPs a week and be pretty much assured that I would reach 70% of my target audience with a frequency of 3. If I made that same buy today, I would only reach 45% of my target audience. So he's lost that much reach due to all this fragmentation. But the GRPs are still there because they're made up with frequency. So that's one of the big issues that we try and tackle with advanced television. The other thing is that the frequency, as I said, is really totally out of control. We've all been there, whether you're watching an award show or if you're a sports junkie like me and you watch college football. It was a very rough week for Penn State this weekend, for those of you who care about that like I do. But if you're watching a football game for 3 hours, you're going to see a sponsor who's run 6 to 8 commercials during that game. God forbid there's overtime. And then what happens is the game's over, you flip channel, you go to the other network to watch another football game, and you see the same advertiser 6 or 8 more times. So frequency's out of control. So you take these smiling faces that were okay with the first 3 times they saw your commercial, and they quickly turn into this. So the user experience gets horrible, the message is getting wasted because you're just killing them with it, all they want to do is change the channel. And then there's the targeting aspect. So for the last 60 years plus, we've been buying demographics, age and gender demographics. So on the left here, we have an 18-year-old man who looks like he's probably in college. And on the right, we have his dad, who's 49 years old. They're both in the 18 to 49 demo, but I would posit that they don't have a lot in common in terms of what their interests are or what kind of ad appeals to them. I think the guy on the left, you know, he's happy he just aced an exam in school, and his father's sitting there saying, God, how many more of these tuition checks do I have to write? You know? And it's not just there. Look at these 2 30-year-old women. One on the left is going to go out and buy a new outfit for this big presentation she's got coming up. And the one on the right, the last thing she can worry about is her outfit. And I know this from personal experience because I have 3 little grandchildren, and I know what my daughter's thinking. She's saying, when is the babysitter getting here? How can I get to the gym? And let me have some adult stimulation and a conversation, please. So I don't think we should be appealing to these people the same way. We can do a much better job than this. And that's what advanced TV is all about. Our value prop is really about delivering incremental reach to a base plan. So what we talk about is we spend a lot of time analyzing, in many cases, upfront buys. So we'll take a look at your base buy, which is what most media plans are built on. We'll do a reach and frequency analysis against that. And then we'll try and determine for you how we can best deliver incremental reach. Our algorithms, and I'm not a techie, but I love the word recursive algorithm. All right, that's the only word I know. But the fact of the matter is, when you do a ranker, basically when people are doing buyers, any of your agency people, you do a ranker on adults 25 to 54, or most egregious example, men 18 to 34, which is your target audience, all right? And I'll get my top ranker, ESPN, my next one, ESPN2, my next one, ESPNU, Fox Sports, CBS Sports, NBC Sports, and I go down the list, and we buy that way. Our algorithm will buy ESPN, and then it'll deduplicate everything, and it'll say, well, if I got this guy here on ESPN, I don't need to buy any more of the sports stuff. I've already got that guy. He watches all these shows. Now it jumps down to the Discovery Network, and it buys Discovery, and then it deduplicates all over again, and it finds the next place where we can find incremental reach. And that's really the key to what we're doing with incremental reach. In addition, what we can do is take a look. What's that G doing down there? Sorry, I'm not so good at power. The next thing we can do is look at a competitor's schedule. So let's use an example of the automobile industry. So if I'm Chevy, I can look at Ford. I can take a look at their base plan. I can do the reach and frequency analysis against their base plan. And then I have 2 choices. I can either choose to go after the same people that they went after, or I can go after the people that they missed with their campaign. And then finally, I can deliver a precision target, a strategic target. And when I talk about a strategic target, I'm really talking about men 18 to 34 who are in the market for a truck, men 18 to 34 who like to socialize and go to parties, women 18 to 34 who don't drive. You know, well, you pick it. I mean, we're using advanced data sets here to help us do a better job, and we will guarantee not only against the traditional Nielsen age and gender demographics, but we'll also guarantee against that strategic demographic. So that's a big differentiator from what we're doing before. And when I talk about doing this, we're using advanced data sets. So in the TV world, we all work with Nielsen. We're using MRI segments. We have set-top box data. And the big differentiator is the TV manufacturing data. And here, I think you're probably all familiar with the fact that Nielsen meters, there's like 55,000 meters in the country. And all of our viewing habits are basically geared against those 55,000 homes. So with TV manufacturing data, we're talking about smart TVs, and there are 7 million in our data set. So it gives us a much bigger view of what's going on when we see everything that goes across those 7 million screens. In addition to that, because they're smart TVs, they're delivered by IP addresses. And that's the same IP address that's connected to your mobile phone, which is a big deal for you guys, your laptop computer, anything digital going into your house. So it enables us to do things like see whether or not you saw your ad, and then did you take an action. So we can do attribution studies on the back end and prove points that your campaign's really working for you. So here's a schematic design. This is basically what our platform looks like. And here, basically, we're looking at a base plan that's got $3.6 million in spend. It's reaching 18% of its target audience, which has been 18 to 49, with a strategic target. Let's say it's truck drivers, right? So we'll take that strategic target, and then we'll do a reach and frequency analysis. We'll show you here on the left-hand side the networks that were bought, and then we'll do a frequency analysis. And we talked before about that whole problem with frequency, right? And in this particular example, 95% of the impressions are falling in that first quintile, your heavy TV viewer, which represents 20% of your audience. And they've got a frequency of 4, then it drops down to 1 and 1 in the next 2 quintiles. So what would a client do? Well, I want to try and get more reach, let me throw more money at this. And when they do that, they do increase their reach a little bit, but look what happens to that first quintile. All of a sudden I've jumped up to 8, and very little has happened in the other quintiles. And I'm still below a frequency of 2 everywhere else. So what our platform will do is it'll go out and take that additional spend that you're going to add, and we'll target the quintiles that you're not reaching. So we accomplish 2 things with that. We'll get you much greater reach across the entire quintile universe. We'll modulate your frequency distribution against those quintiles and give you incremental reach, not built on frequency, but built on reach. And that's pretty much what our platform does. And I'll give you a couple of case studies that we've done. This is one that we did for an auto client of ours. And here, we're talking about the fact that their original base plan, they spent $3.7 million. They were reaching roughly 15, 16% of the marketplace. And they had a scatter budget of $2.8 million. So we decided to do an analysis for them. And they said, well, if we took that $2.8 million and we bought it the way we usually buy scatter, which is just heavying up on what we bought in the upfront, I would get an incremental reach of roughly 6.4 million impressions and another 10% of incremental reach. But if I use that same $2.8 million and I used it for an advanced TV plan using our platform, I would now generate 9.3 million additional impressions, and my reach number would increase by 25%, an increase of 145% over what they would have done if they just added to a scatter buy. And this is what we do every day with all of our clients, is we're out talking to everybody. Another example, here we're talking about, here we're doing an attribution study on the back end. So we're using IP addresses here, and we basically set up an exposed and controlled group. This was for a travel client, and they were trying to drive people to their website to sign up for a cruise. And so what we did is we looked at the exposed households who actually saw the TV ad, because on that smart TV we can tell who saw the ad and who didn't. And we showed, and the control group didn't see the ad. We had the same number of households analyzed on both sides. We looked at the households that converted and actually went to that website, and the conversion went from 0.3 to 0.7 based on those people who had seen the ad. So it shows the effectiveness of this advertising campaign and your ads. So in conclusion, what we're really talking about here is, really changing, same G, we're talking about really enhancing our targeting capabilities, getting beyond just age and gender, all right? We're talking about extending reach, which is the most important thing. You guys are doing tremendous work, and the messages that you're creating are really powerful. Now we just have to get them in front of more people. And we don't want to have the same guy, the same 18-year-old guy watching football see it 18 or 50 times, and the rest of the people seeing it once. For it to have impact, you need to have much more distribution and frequency control. And then ultimately, to look at the back end and see what kind of insights we're getting, finding out which commercials work the best. In that travel example that I showed you, they ran multiple commercials. We were able to show the difference in conversion rates for each one of those creatives, which is something we can do in the back end. We also can show them the optimal frequency at which point these people are converting, which is something you really don't know about in traditional television. So in conclusion, basically, we can do all of these things, and we can do them across all screens. Tried not to make this a total advertising pitch for Adobe, but I would like to leave you with one creative. I'm going to need your help in the back to get this one going. Thank you. I think if I was a millennial, I would now drop the mic and
We have time for a couple questions for either Mike or Bruce, so if someone has a question.
Yeah, so on the first presentation, I had a question in terms of logistics and with the landing pages that you use for the different ad campaigns. How is that done? Is that through your ad agency? How did that work in getting that developed? And what's on those landing pages?
So everything, our websites, Facebook, Twitter, all of that is managed by our ad agency. I'm the last person that would know anything about that or want to do that. But you do need someone that can do it 24 hours a day, keep up with it, know what's happening, current events, and know what the latest media stuff is, and so we do that and pay for that.
Other questions?
So Mike, they're great ad campaigns. I'm from Colorado. When you launch these campaigns, do you do them year after year after year? How do you know when it's time to start fresh? Because in Colorado, we tend to develop something every year new, and then I'm starting to think and you obviously found something really good, how long do you stay with it?
First of all, I think it's important to know that everything we do is a campaign. So we have a television spot, radio spot, outdoor, social media aspect, and we run that campaign. We do it, it depends on how many spots we have. For example, we have sometimes at least 3, but sometimes we have 6 or 9 following the same type of theme. Like what's the worst that can happen also has a texting one and a buckle up one. And there's some research about how long to do that. And also it depends on how much money we have. We do all of the NHTSA mobilizations, Click It or Ticket, but we run about 8 to 10 campaigns per year. So things are changing about every month or every other month, just to keep things fresh and moving and doesn't get stale.
So do you use those spots during the NHTSA mobilization, or do you have separate spots that have the NHTSA themes?
We do not use drive sober or get pulled over, but we see those in our state because NHTSA does placement. And so we felt it's good, to have both, but we use our spots during those mobilizations.
We got 2 questions on this round.
This is a question for Bruce. Sir, how do you work with advertising agencies? Do you consult with them, or do the client and work with the agency, or how does that take place?
Most of the work that we do is directly with the agencies. So I spend my day in advertising agencies pretty much every day.
Michael, excellent job in the presentation. You did a really good job. My question is, do you use just federal dollars, or do you subsidize with state dollars too?
The majority of what we use is federal dollars, but we are a little bit lucky in our state. We have a state designated underage drinking fund. We have some other state designated funds, like from speeding tickets, $3 is added on, and that comes to us. And we have a little bit more flexibility with those funds. So if we're ever bordering on something that we're not sure about, we usually defer to state funds, but probably 80% is federal funds.
What percentage of your federal funds, annual funds, do you put towards your public awareness?
We get about $12 million total. A lot of what we use is Section 164 money for those of you highway safety officers. We get about $7 million as that. We get, since we're such a small state population-wise, we get very little 402 and all the other ones, 405 and all of those letters. So we spend about 40% of our budget on public awareness. We spend about the other 40% or more on enforcement, because that's obviously you need both. And then the other 20% is kind of gap fill wherever we think there's an issue that we can help out with. But research has shown the best way to reduce death and injury, and that's what we're trying to do. It's not trying to get great ratings or anything like that. It's ultimately to reduce death and injury. You need good enforcement and good public awareness. Those are the two things you need.
Mine's for Bruce. So can you do that at a state level as well as maybe a market level?
Yes,
Or just on a national level?
We're running a lot of local campaigns as
Okay,
well.
so you can go down to state
Yes,
and market. Okay.
absolutely.
I don't know if you were here yesterday, Bruce, this is for you, but the presenter talked about someone having to see a message 11 times before they respond to it. And in the old days, it was 3 times, and we did look for a frequency of 3. So what's the difference between the 3 and the 11?
Well, I think the optimal frequency is going to be different for every type of campaign, every different demographic. I mean, I think in the travel example I showed you, where we were talking about where were the conversion rates best, it was at a frequency of 7 to 9. I think a lot of traditional TV planners that plan 100 or 200 GRPs a week are looking for anywhere from 3 to 5 per week. I don't know it's going to change for every advertiser. We try and help solve that problem by providing that kind of insight on the back end to show them where it resonated the best, what frequency level it resonated the best, but I think it's going to be different for every client.
One last question, anybody? Okay.
I really don't have time. May I ask, what is the definition of GRP again? Did you say that it was frequency times reach?
Yeah, at the gross rating point, the calculation is reach times frequency, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you, gentlemen, very much. That was very interesting.